Geschichten eines Flugzeugbauers. The next few years were years of reorientation for me, not in terms of aircraft construction and aircraft history, but of a private nature. Vocational training was completed, the hamster wheel had caught me, the marriage broke up, custody issues for the first child, etc. 2 moves, small living conditions, no workshop. Just the way life is. The little free time that was left was dedicated to writing. The idea behind this was, as already mentioned, to work through the topics that interested me. The fact that this resulted in books that I could then offer to others to read was a side effect. It was already written. In this context, I may briefly express my personal view of the society in which we live. There are no inherently uninteresting topics. However, there are many facets of topics that are unknown to the individual. These facets are made interesting by reporting on them, by writing about them. Only when something is written about can a reader say, "Oh, look here, I didn't know that," and then delve deeper into it. A society whose publishing industry acts according to commercial considerations and chooses content so that it will attract the public's interest simply by mentioning the topic because readers or consumers know it is doomed to destruction. That's where we are right now, in my opinion. The content of current books for the masses is only put together so that people who have already heard about something can read about it again. New topics are deliberately avoided here because they are a deterrent, sales-wise. Of course, it must be kept in mind that everyone has the opportunity to buy specialist books that go into more depth. But this automatically regulates the circle of readers downwards and does not raise everyone's level of knowledge equally. Would that be important? Well, I don't know, but that's how I see it. For this reason, my books were always written for myself and then made accessible to others without abridgment. Since each stands on its own, they form a whole in the end. In part 16 of this series, I showed how Peter Gross, for example, pointed out things that were missing in terms of content and considered others to be superfluous. This book, too, was just one in a series of many that would eventually deal with these topics that he felt were missing. He didn't get that point. In the years from 1997 to 2002 or 3, I mainly worked on these books. Anyone familiar with my work knows that I have tackled 2 main series. The first is called German Aircraft Technology 1900 to 1920. In this series, individual topics are dealt with mainly in text form, and the corresponding sources are being included as facsimile reproductions instead of being just mentioned in footnotes. A second series was to discuss individual aircraft and their construction, or even individual parts of an aircraft, in simply designed illustrated books. I called this series In Detail. It was published bilingually in German and English. The development of the internet has made it possible for me to publish my books without paper. This suited me very well, especially as I always wanted to make them accessible to those with less purchasing power. And so, for almost a quarter of a century now, my products have been available to download free of charge. Of course, many appreciated that, and also, of course, for simple-minded people this brings with it the argument that something that costs nothing can also be worth nothing. But that doesn't bother me at all. If you don't like my work, you can download the books for free and then delete them again from your computer. It's not as if you have spent a lot of money for that garbage. Since I do everything myself, from writing to typesetting to delivery, and I'm not a language student, there's also the other fraction that makes fun of missing commas, misplaced tenses or typos. That doesn't bother me either. If you can't read with comprehension, perfect punctuation won't help you anyway. That's just the way it is. They can buy grammar books and don't have to deal with aviation history. Only those who do nothing wrong is my motto here. And most people don't do anything that stands out. I also document my work in films or videos. Initially, I made short films in the style of contemporary silent films with the text panels just for the fun of it. These are still available to download as video files on my website. These films developed into a more modern series which can now be found on the internet as the MFTG Workshop Watch. It shows how I actually built those planes using the methods of the time back then. Apart from that, I've been working on 2 other big pieces for myself that no one outside the company knows about, but which I don't want to withhold from you because they are simply part of the stories of an aircraft builder. I have been working on these 2 pieces in the background since the late 80s, of the last century of course, so they were nothing that came out of nowhere in this short period time of 1997 to 2002. Out of my own interest, I started to compile a dictionary of German aviation and aircraft technology up to 1920 to go along with my other series. As I had the impression that this book alone could give the impression that aviation was a purely German matter, I began to compile a chronicle of the mythology and history of flight under the working title Des Fliegens Ahnen, or The Ancestors of Flight, which was intended to summarize all worldwide stories, events or endeavors in the field of aviation. The curse and blessing of computer technology. The computer made the compilation and sorting quite easy. I backed up all the files on 2 hard disks and kept them up to date. One of them was physically destroyed and I had to get a second one as quickly as possible. Apparently I took too much time with this, because less than 14 days later the second hard disk also failed. I still have both of them and have taken them to a few specialists over the years, who anonymously assured me that the content could no longer be restored using today's methods and that the damage was permanent. One of the 2 works contained just under 3,000 pages, the other a little more, perhaps 3,500 pages. Of course, both were far still from complete in the way I imagined. All that's left of both today are small file remnants that I had saved on 3.5-inch floppy disks or printed out. Of course, this was a blow to the account and has taken away some of the enthusiasm in me. Maybe I'll take up on the 2 projects again later. In the meantime, I have also published articles in various trade journals and model magazines. A nice little series was called Forgotten Pioneers, in which I reported on very early aircraft builders and made drawings of their flying machines. Some of the drawings from this series of articles still adorn the wall of my little museum today and can be seen on my virtual museum tour at www.fokker-museum.de in station number 4. From 2002 onwards, however, I started building airplanes again and had new adventures to experience, which I will report on in the coming episodes. I can already promise that there were some exciting things and people I met among them. Even you may be familiar with upcoming names. So keep your eyes peeled.